Welcome to Something More with Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is a certified financial planner practitioner and senior vice president and financial advisor at Wealth Enhancement Group, one of the nation's largest registered investment advisors. We call it Something More because we'd like to talk not only about those important dollar and cents issues, but also the quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Here he is, your fulfillment facilitator, your partner in prosperity, advising clients on Cape Cod and across the country. Here's your host, J. Christopher Boyd.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being with us for another episode of Something More. I'm here with Jeff Perry and Russ Ball. We are all of the AMR team at Wealth Enhancement, and glad to have you here. We're going to talk about a variety of topics today. Specifically, we intend to dig into a topic that's come up with some clients about, having that letter in the drawer, the where my stuff is, But before we do that, I thought we maybe should touch on the notion of something significant that's evolved in the news, and that is the government shutdown. And this is one of those instances where we always wonder what will be the market reaction and how will things be impacted with the consequence of anxiety and in the news of something significant. Will it have broader economic consequences over time? And or will it get resolved very quickly? It does seem to start off where both sides seem pretty entrenched in their view. Everyone's trying to position so that they're not the one getting blamed. Nothing new
That's
there.
very true, Chris. It's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, and yet another example of government dysfunction. It seems.
No doubt.
While we worry about, what will be the budget for the year ahead. This is where we start our planning. Essentially, this is our fiscal year that started in October for the 2026 fiscal budget, I guess. It seems like this is always perpetually one of these things we worry about. Will there be a government shutdown? And then the other one is when there's the debt ceiling.
Yeah. Luckily, the debt ceiling
that's at least put off for a while.
That's been addressed for the moment. Yep.
Yeah. That was part of OBBA, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
All right. Thank goodness. One thing at least that's not an immediate anxieties point for the market. So,
Chris, can I start with a question for you? Because you've been watching the market and doing financial planning for a couple of years now, 20 or so. Are you surprised by this news or other news like things? Like the market isn't shaken by this so far.
Yeah.
Or anything else that in the past.
It really is surprising to me. Yeah. I share that. It sounds like you feel the same way. Yeah. We had a little disruption from tariffs at the beginning, earlier in the year, but markets shook that off pretty quickly.
It was like a hiccup.
Yeah.
Word of the day.
And and then it's just kept on going. We've had the Middle East still has its stresses. We've had Ukraine and Russia and all, and China and everything, where it just seems like there's always something that's an anxiety point. We've had things happening in the news with deployment of National Guard and all this, and things that, at other moments in time, just some of these news items would just create some angst,
volatility.
Yeah. And yet, that just seems to shake everything off, and on the one hand, that's really pleasing as a someone who, manages money for our clients and how we navigate those long-term planning and so forth. It's much easier for clients to see the long term when they're not seeing big disruptions. It's kind of unexpected.
I almost wonder if traders or retail investors, or however you want to define the different groups, don't believe anything that's they think everything is subject to change.
Yeah,
it's posturing, it's politics, it's whatever, and so I'm not really going to worry about it because it could go away or it could get worse, and so I'm just going to stay the course of however people are evaluating whatever investment stocks, for example.
Well, that may not be inaccurate because so far that's kind of been what's happened, right? You look at the tariffs as an example of that.
It's a great example. Yeah.
Starts off with this dire, drastic, extreme kind of anxiety. And basically with China, we were positioning to embargo trade with China.
Yeah.
The way it was being set up. But when push comes to shove, it's been more of a negotiating ploy, it seems like, than an actual demand, And as much as people, they envision this bringing a lot of jobs back to the United States, and perhaps there'll be some benefit for that. It does seem like it's been more about some revenue, for the government.
So now with this shutdown that we're in day 2 of, I guess the first thing that, well, it depends if you're a federal employee or not. Because if you're a federal employee, President Trump seems to be using this, whether it's posturing or whether it's real, as an opportunity to do some of the labor reductions that he wasn't otherwise allowed to do. So that's kind of the top story of the day, I guess. Then we have other things like, well, we're not going to get economic data.
Well, and the threat that some of these jobs may not return, right?
That's right. He's talking layoffs, not furloughs.
Yeah.
Which is a different category that he seems like he can legally do.
Maybe a leverage thing, to your point.
Right. So no financial data, which,
that makes it challenging. How do you,
for a week or so, maybe it's okay, but
it could be disruptive if, how's the Fed monitor things? How's the Fed respond to things? The Fed's still got jobs, right? I don't know.
Well, one of them does.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's been that Supreme Court case too, not related to the shutdown, but and the other thing that I saw in the news related to the shutdown was Secretary.
Oh, you're talking about the cook? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, she's still got her job.
Sorry, I didn't pick up on that. Yeah,
that's all right. People don't pick up a lot of things I say.
You got it. One of them does.
So we got the layoffs, we've got the lack of data, and the other thing I saw in the news is that Secretary Bessent, Treasury Secretary, is, I don't know, warning's the right word, but announcing that if this shutdown is longer term, that it could have a negative impact on GDP for the quarter.
Yeah, that's a concern, right? Disruption on employment and the purchasing that goes with that, and
permits, and
just
all the things,
the economic slowdown that can generate.
Yeah,
that's a good point. All these elements that
your first thought is like, well, it's government. What do they produce? But then you think about, well, they touch so many things, whether it's regulations or whether it's hearings or whether it's permits or whether it's, you name it, they have a little piece of the process of approving things, and those things get stalled,
and that ultimately leads to more problematic
which leads to layoffs in contractors and layoffs in people that support government activities. And so it does have some significant economic consequences if it continues long term.
Well, I imagine that's the challenge. Will we be having this conversation a week or two from now, or will we be having this conversation a month from now? If it goes a month, you're starting to see some of that kind of worry. If it's a week, two, and usually how it happens is things kind of just back to business as usual, and the people whose jobs were affected get back pay and the rest of it.
Yep, it ends up to be a vacation, actually, a paid vacation.
Yeah, maybe
for the workers who are
stressful
furloughed.
Vacation, but
stressful vacation.
And then maybe
more so this time with the potential for layoffs coming, but
definitely.
I think there's a lot of posturing, like we said, and it's hard to know what's just messaging to try to get the other side to give in on what's actually real. But it does seem from some of the interviews I've heard that Democrats feel that this is their one point of leverage, and it feels like their heels are pretty well dug in. But anything can happen.
And it's unfortunate that there's political dynamics of, everyone trying to appeal to their base to be seen in a certain way. It doesn't seem like it's purely about the merits of whatever the spending really is focused.
It never is, right?
Yeah.
The emails are out on both sides fundraising why they need to get more donations to stop or start or whatever the cause is, right?
Yeah. Well, let's turn our attention to what we really wanted to talk about today. And Russ, I think you were in this meeting. We had a conversation recently with a client, and they said something about, I have a folder full of stuff that's really old. I have to revisit that. This notion of in the desk drawer where my assets are or who to call. I thought that would be just a topic that would be worth spending a few minutes on, Jeff, because everyone should have this. It's not something we have as a focal point of our planning, and yet it's a really important part of one's plan, more for the people you leave behind in the event of an illness, a prolonged illness, or in the event of a passing. This question of who do I call? Where's our stuff? What do I do? So I just maybe Jeff, let's start with what have you done? Because I know you mentioned you've done some of this stuff for your family.
Yep, absolutely. And just a side note, because when you mentioned this topic to me today, the first thing I thought of was the webinar we just did with the Digital Wrangler.
Yeah, Kate Huffnagle, and that
right.
was well received. And by the way, if you want to check that out, you can find it on YouTube, on our or go to our webpage. You can find that either by going to somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or Wealth Enhancement /AMR, wealthenhancement.com/AMR.
Even more convenient, I'll throw a link to the YouTube video in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to just go from us, when we're done, please wait.
Yeah.
You can just check.
But that's a great point in terms of the there's a variety of things that are digital based that are how do I get access to? Where do I find those things? Will you retain the rights to? And a little bit of forethought can really make a difference there.
Right. I mean, just think 20 years ago, if you had a parent pass or your spouse became ill or passed and you weren't the one handling the money and you needed to figure it out, right? Where's my stuff? What do I do? Mm-hmm. You waited by the mailbox pretty much.
You're right.
Because over the next month or quarter, everything's coming in the mail to you. Statement, assets, liabilities, whatever.
If there was an insurance policy at some point, there'd be a bill or a statement, things like that. But not always is that the case today.
I'd say it's the minority of cases. I know from you asked me about what we do. I don't think we get anything official in the mail anymore, other than advertisements and maybe Christmas cards. So yes, I have drawn a letter of instructions upon my passing, and because I'm the one who handles the bills and the investments. And Lisa has a lot of things that she does, but that's not one of them she's interested in. She knows about everything, obviously, but like one of the basic things is, here are our bills. Here's how they're paid. Here's what to expect.
Yep.
And then here are the related passwords to these accounts, right? And bookmarked in the.
It takes a little bit of time to pull that together for you to do that write up.
Sure, absolutely.
That is incredibly valuable.
It's an exercise that isn't only, in case of my early passing, but it's also a good exercise for you to do as a person, like the one who's handling it, to say, these are my bills. When are they due? And also in that process, I bookmarked all of the websites related to those.
Oh, nice.
And I did it for Lisa, but I also did it for myself because, we learn from people when we're talking about scams and, how to prevent things, that if you deal with Bank of America, you just don't want to Google Bank of America, because who knows what's at the top. So if you save your bookmarks, if you bookmark your legit sites, you just use those because you know they're going to be safe and secure.
Yep.
And you need to have all your documents, your estate planning documents, fresh, meaning reviewed, and that they're current, and that the people that you appointed to be healthcare proxy, power of attorney, successor trustee are still available to do those things.
Yeah.
And if you move, you got to update these things, but let them know where they are.
Right.
And in my case, we've gone further, where I have told her, call Chris Boyd. Like,
yeah, there you go.
But no, here's someone who can step. This isn't your strong suit, right?
That's a great place to start. I think when it comes to thinking about clients and who they should have a little laundry list of where they've got the name, address, phone number, email, maybe, of certain kinds of people. So who is that estate planning attorney that they should call when it comes time to deal with either kind of circumstance, an incapacity or a passing? Who's your financial planner, investment advisor? Who's your tax preparer, accountant, CPA, whatever you use in this process? Who handles your life insurance? Is there a single agent? Is it multiple companies you deal with directly? How do you contact them? Right? Maybe policy numbers to go with those kinds of account numbers to go with those kinds of things. We'll come back to that. Do we have a lender? Is there a mortgage? Is there car loans or whatever? Who do we owe money to? Who do we have a banking relationship with? We may have one bank, maybe we have 5 banks. Do I know where all the banking money is, right? Or whatever it might be. And if it's in the case of investments, maybe it's not one person, maybe it's multiple people, right? Or firms if you deal with them directly. I think there's other things too, Jeff. Like, what about the intangible stuff of like, who do I call if I need to repair something?
Yeah.
Who's the handyman helper or whatever that I would use? Well, it used to be, I'd call Jeff or, hey, Jeff, this door is squeaking. What do we, who do I call now? Right. That kind
Sorry,
of.
I moved.
Yeah. No, you know what I mean? For the
No, but it's about keeping that list fresh as well, like looking at it.
Yeah, you need to think of new possibilities in that case you move. Who's a plumber? Who's a yard care? I don't know. You get pest control, whatever it might be, right? There's a laundry list of, maybe some people have an alarm service or automotive care. That for a lot of times, who's trustworthy auto care. Those are a few of the things that come to my mind, just on the who do I call list. But there's probably a variety of other things that I haven't thought of. But I think you could also maybe step back and say, who has a key to my house? Who has access to the home? Are there neighbors, friends that have access? Are there family members? Do we still want that?
That's right.
Could be a different. Oh, I didn't think of it too. Like if you got a pet, who's handling we have a pet sitter, and geez, who is that? When it comes to an estate plan, have you completed it updated it within the last 3 years? 3 years are kind of arbitrary, but is it recent? Is kind of my point. Is it current?
I'd even add something to that. I totally agree with you, but like at least once a year, the couple in this case, or the individual if you're living by yourself, but go over that document yourself. Like just look at it. I'm not saying you need to change it every year.
Understand it a little bit. Yeah.
But like I think it's super common that life changes. Like maybe you have a relative who passed and they're not in the estate plan. So does that estate plan still work without that person being in it? Or who's the successor trustee or successor executor? And do those people know what you want? Because that's a real missing piece of this. You're at the
healthcare issues, right?
You're at the lawyer's office and you say, who's your brother or someone else is saying, who do you think you'd like as your healthcare proxy? And you list somebody. You actually need to talk to those people. And if something
do they know what your wishes are? Keep me alive at all costs. Because when you're dead, you're dead. Or is it, well, quality of life? I want to, if I'm, these kind of nuances.
Yep.
I've heard people make good cases for different thoughts on this, one way versus the other. And I think, you need to have that clarity of what is their intention.
And it may not be the same person, for your executor, your trustee, and your healthcare proxy power of attorney, because different people in your family, in your life, have different skill sets. But the greater point is, I'm saying, look at those documents, and let's say you had a change in your health in the last year that might change some of this discussion with your healthcare proxy. Just make sure your documents are updated for what you need them, and then go to the attorney every 3 or so years and make sure it's updated legally.
Yeah.
Things change every year. And so if you do this every year, if you look at the list of what are my bills, what are my assets, what are my liabilities, all the things that you listed, and look at your healthcare with your spouse, if you have a spouse, do this at least once a year. It's a process that won't take long, but you can make sure it's updated and everybody understands.
I know Keats is doing a maintenance plan more and more these days, so people can update it as frequently as is needed, not just every so often. Russ, you look like you had something to add.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, kind of to that point of, reviewing your estate plan together with your spouse or another family member, whoever it may be. I think it's really important to not just write all this stuff out like you're talking about, Jeff, but have an active, engaged conversation with the person who might not be as involved, whether it be the repairs in the house or the finances. Don't just leave it until you're gone. Like, have that conversation ongoingly. Like, it doesn't have to be every day, but to just kind of get, everyone on the same page, what we're talking about here, so that when they're looking at the form, God forbid something were to happen, it's not like, oh wait, I wonder what this has to do with. It made sense to the person writing it, but not so much to the person reading it.
Right.
That kind of thing.
And this applies, the list we were talking about before about bills or important people to contact. I think that list is also appropriate for your executor and your successor trustee. I mean, not just your spouse, because it, God forbid, but something could happen to both of you in this scenario at the same time. And you have these backup individuals in your documents, but if they know nothing about your financial world and you've asked them to be successor trustee or, alternate executor, that's a big burden on them, just starting with, okay, I have this job to do. I know nothing about them. So at least provide them the list to call this lawyer, this financial advisor, this CPA, and just those three, and insurance agent maybe. Those individuals will be able to help your successor trustee, executor, at least start the process of fulfilling the duties that you've asked them to do.
Yeah, good points. This all came up because I saw a colleague of mine was promoting for his clientele a binder with a lot of these kinds of things. I was like, that's a great idea. I really want to make sure we talk about some of these things and perhaps piggyback on that kind of a good idea. You guys have made some great points. One of the things that we had in the office this week was someone who said they did their prepaid funeral. And that might be something to make note of, some of those details. If your kids don't know that there's been plans made, that could be a lost opportunity.
Yeah, you could definitely see that happening. You pass away, you didn't tell anybody. I mean, the reading of the estate plan or even a letter,
it's too late.
It's too late. They've already sent you to
been buried. Yeah.
Literally, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you find that somebody paid $15,000 for this service at the funeral home next door. Right.
Yeah.
And in that instance, we were talking about like there was a whole process. They went to the funeral home. They picked out the casket,
and so forth.
Did all the particulars. And if they pass and no one knew, then you might not even go to the right
place or do the way exactly what they had in mind,
or have the service that they wanted, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing. I know my mom is always like taking notes from that was a really nice song for a funeral, so she's like got a whole
mom
little
did the same thing.
Hey, for when I die, she's got sort of a funeral mass in mind,
Yep, same
Well,
thing.
I mean, that's another thing you want to make sure people know how to find it when the timing is important. All right. So, what were some other things when it comes to assets? It's probably we talk about often a narrative, right? Putting together some sort of
Mhm.
an explanation of things. Sometimes maybe just to even that estate plan we were talking about. Um, Someone, whether it's the attorney or the grantor, somewhere there should be a little explanation of here's how this is supposed to work.
That's a
Here's
good
what
point.
we expect it to do. Here's why we did it this way. A
Mhm.
little bit could be helpful so family members know why you chose this structure of an estate plan. Is your trust a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust? And some of the details as to why you did it a certain way could be really relevant so people understand what's going on and how to navigate that.
It could also avoid family strife. Like if you make a decision in your estate plan that doesn't appear to be equal and fair to someone,
Yeah,
if there's an explanation
right.
given in that letter, or some people use a video too. I've seen
Yeah,
people want to record the video and
this
this is
is
why
another
I did this, right? But
this is
that
another thing that came up this week. Just the idea that um, this challenge, which we often discuss, is what's fair and what's equal isn't always identical.
correct.
But I think I cut you off, Russ.
No, I was just going to say the explanation of it will hopefully avoid strife and could even avoid a challenge to the plan,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So when we're making this list or this letter or whatever, I think it's a good idea to include either in the narrative or as like an addendum, statements,
Mhm.
or this is where we keep, in our case, we have a Schwab or a Fidelity or whatever kind of an account. Maybe you include details about the account number and the phone number and some of those, how to access this stuff. Um, the real estate, how's it owned?
Right.
You know, um, when it comes to the bank, we might have not only what we do our main banking joint account out of, but we see this all the time where we've got uh, a joint account, but there's often people have his account, her account, our account, and so if one of them passes, was that a joint account or what? His account was it or her account was it really individually owned, or what? Do we have it set up so that the other person can get access? Is there a beneficiary assigned to it? You know, uh, Things that can get overlooked. Oftentimes, people have CDs and they go shopping for a rate,
Mhm.
and so they get deals somewhere else, or even an online bank that, again, if you didn't, you might not get a statement for. Do people know where those assets are?
Yeah, and if you don't have access to
The online
password,
access, yeah,
right?
or or the email, you might never
Right.
know it.
That's right.
Um, Liability. Oh, a safety deposit box. Let's talk about that for a minute. What are your thoughts on a safety deposit box?
I think they have a good purpose, in case of fire, especially, or theft at a home where you put certain documents in and maybe things that are very valuable that you
So
don't.
you're talking about a fire safe box in your house as opposed to at the bank?
No, I'm talking about a bank for both fire and for theft. If you have certain tangible assets, maybe some jewelry that you don't use but you want to save, or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you bought a gold bar at Costco. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
And and then some people like to put their original documents, like their original home policy. This is kind of old school, but a lot of people still do it.
Mhm, mhm.
And estate planning original documents in a safety deposit box. I don't use one anymore myself. I used to, but I
Yeah.
don't. But I think the point here is if you use one or not, make sure that someone has access to it and prevent them from having to go into the court and getting a
That's
court order to
exactly
open
where
it
I
up.
was going. Yeah.
Right.
You got to have more than one person who's able to sign in if that's your intention. Now, of
Right.
course, that's someone who can sign in and
Right.
take whatever is there, I suppose. But it's prudent to, if you're going to have something like that, don't be the only person who has access, especially if it's holding your will or, documents that you expect to be useful when you pass.
Right. Yep.
I was thinking also about liabilities. And sometimes people have lent money, not liability of their own, but that it's more of an asset that they've
They've lent
lent
money to
money.
family members or
Right.
friends or something. Yep.
And is there a note? Is there something that details that arrangement?
Hmm.
Will that money be paid back to your widowed spouse or whatever?
Right. Yep.
Um, you want some of that detailed, and that people know how to have that
Yeah.
access to those details.
Yeah, you should never lend. This is my opinion. It may not be shared, but you should never lend money to anyone, even your closest, friend or a relative, without some type of written document about what the expectations are. That's
Yeah.
all. Doesn't have to be like
Just to avoid the
right.
confusion and then subsequent uh, pain and problems that would come with that because of, well, I said, you said, we said, no,
It's a good way to show up on Judge Judy.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. um, I know this isn't you, Jeff, but a lot of times people have lots of credit cards.
Hmm.
And that's another thing that's probably worth detailing.
Yep.
Um,
Liabilities, certainly.
where do you have these, and how to access and, address
Yep.
those issues?
So this
I
would
don't
be
know.
this would be covered in what I described. I don't know if I described it well, but a page of your monthly and quarterly and annual bills. So,
Yep.
if you have a Visa card that comes in around the 15th, you put it on that list. And so whoever's looking, taking over your power of attorney or maybe your spouse or whoever says, okay, there's supposed to be a Visa card
Yeah.
around the
Where's that?
15th.
Yeah.
Why and where is it? So maybe I got to dig and find it.
Right.
Right.
And I think, on the other side of that, the income, especially when a spouse
Hmm.
dies, there's the question of, well, what happens to my income? We've run into a lot of times when there's a lot of stress from one spouse who says, will all my income end
Right.
because the other person's pension goes away, or what will happen with their social security? So again, this, if it's included in a narrative of some kind, it can alleviate some of that stress, is to say, this is what's planned, 50% or whatever, 100% or whatever the
Hmm.
number is, and who to contact to get that initiated.
Right. Chris, I know we handle a lot of these questions when we go through a financial plan and an annual review with clients, but as part of that process, sometimes it's not right for every situation, but sometimes it's prudent to have a family member come in and be part of that annual review.
That's a good point, because it can really help. One, it helps them know who they're dealing with when
Right.
something happens,
Yeah,
and have some comfort with that. And
absolutely.
and then two, it can make sure that they know some of the important details and nuances, if that's desirable.
Right. This is probably more applicable when you're getting older. You're starting to recognize that
Your mortality.
this is closer than I want it to be, maybe.
Yeah.
But let's bring in my executor or my trustee, successor trustee, and have them become a part of this. And you can tell the advisor, like, we're not going to go over like all of my net worth or everything. You can hold back on
Yeah.
some details if you don't want
Don't
everyone to
necessarily want
know. But you
everything.
can say the purpose of this year is to explain the plan and why we have certain things. And it can be a very healthy process, I think, for everyone, and give the owner of those accounts some peace that the transition is going to be not seamless, of course, but easier for your successor to say, okay, I'm going to just go to Chris Boyd. I know him. I met him, and we'll get more details and he'll help us through it. I think that's a big part of the reason why you have a financial advisor, is to help you and your family during those difficult life transitions, even at death.
It can be very stressful, right? When you're dealing with not only the sudden loss of someone important to you, but there can, especially if you have a financial dependence or interdependence, that
Absolutely.
there's a very, stress point of like, what's going to happen? What are the things I don't know that I need to know that
And just somebody to hold your hand,
disruption,
figuratively or literally, but someone to hold your hand, like, we're going to help you get these accounts transferred. We're going to help you make sure you have cash, whatever the
Yeah.
situation is.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly you can call somebody or some company that's in, 1,000 miles away, and you'll probably get the work done after a few calls. But having someone who can help you with that and make sure that the financial plan continues to the next person, I don't know if there's anything more important than that a financial advisor does.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Well, so, we've kind of talked about a variety of things you may want to be thinking about, and it may help you to navigate some of these issues as you maybe set out to make your little I love you letter type of thing. If anything happens, here's some of the things to know. That's different maybe from that legacy letter that
Hmm.
might be, these are some life lessons I want to share, but these are all good things to take some time to do. And if you need help in thinking about, these kinds of issues, or, the more ordinary financial planning and
Hmm.
portfolio management kinds of considerations, don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We're here to help. So we're happy to do that. Until next time, everybody, keep striving for something more.
Thank you for listening to Something More with Chris Boyd. Call us for help, whether it's for financial planning or portfolio management, insurance concerns, or those quality of life issues that make the money matters matter. Whatever's on your mind, visit us at somethingmorewithchrisboyd.com or call us toll free at 866-771-8901. Or send us your questions to amr-info@wealthenhancement.com. You're listening to Something More with Chris Boyd Financial Talk Show. Wealth Enhancement Advisory Services and J. Christopher Boyd provide investment advice on an individual basis to clients only. Proper advice depends on a complete analysis of all facts and circumstances. The information given on this program is general financial comments and cannot be relied upon as pertaining to your specific situation. Wealth Enhancement Group cannot guarantee that using the information from this show will generate profits or ensure freedom from loss. Listeners should consult their own financial advisors or conduct their own due diligence before making any financial decisions.